Hey folks, welcome to episode 8 of Film Club. This week we're going to be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6. Oh, wait a minute. It's called Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. With me, co-host...
Doesn't even have a number.
It's so sad, it doesn't have a number. And with me, as always, faithful co-host, Jon-Erik. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Ready to shit on this piece of shit.
Yes, let's get to shitting. So, Freddy's Dead was released on September 13th, 1991, which makes it the first movie from the 90s we're actually talking about in this show so far. Out of every episode we've done, Every movie's been from the 80s.
That's wow, I never thought of that. That's true.
I was surprised myself when I was fun, yet stupid little fun fact, maybe. The director of the movie, Rachel Talalay, we've spoken about her before in The Dream Child, which is her husband was the producer in that one, and she was producer and line producer in part 3 and 4, and been helpful throughout the series, and she was actually allowed to direct this one, which is pretty darn cool. Female director. Back in 91.
Yeah. Shame that
it's a shame
it had to be this one.
Yeah, and I don't, we'll get into that, but I don't think it's necessarily her fault when she talks about this in hindsight. She says maybe we should have taken it in a scarier tone, but at that point, that's what every director has been saying. And yet the movie, like, remember Stephen Hopkins, not Hawkins, you almost got me again now that you said that. He also said that when he was talking about The Dream Child, that it was an aim at being more, trying to bring it back to darker tones. And they did some of that with the gothic, elements in part 5, and some of the tone in some points was, but Freddy's still one-lining throughout the movie. So I feel like this is just pretty much a natural conclusion in terms of tonality overall in the film to what has been transpiring since essentially Dream Warriors, right? We talked about how Dream Warriors is like the true.
That's the start of the the one-liners, but this one just goes, oh my god, overboard with the.
It's bonkers.
Cartoon Freddy. Like it's not even one-liners anymore. It's like jumping up and down behind a guy that's lost his hearing. That like, oh man.
I know. I want to talk about that scene too.
Yeah.
All the actors and crew, when they talk about this movie now, seem to hold Rachel Talalay in very high regard. They all kind of said they had a fun time working on it. It seemed to be a good time. Some of the people who she worked with on Crybaby came over, worked on this. And originally the lady who was, fun fact or just stupid anecdote, but the lady who was sitting beside the John Doe character, the Sean Greenblatt, the supposed lead of the movie upon the outset, that was supposed to be played by Divine, but apparently Divine passed away which I honestly believe would have made so much more sense tonally for this film, because it is such like a funhouse, campy schlock fest, that it's like if you had a drag queen calling him a pussy, as she does, and he's like, can I switch the seat? Like, I have something sad to admit, is that like I like this movie a lot more than I remembered, and not in like a way that like compared to Dream Warriors or the original,
right.
But in terms of when I was a child, and this might be going in a huge side note here, but just to preface some of my crazy thoughts about this film, rewatching it front to back for the first time in many moons, it is so much fun if you watch it, because I remember this is, I think, the movie that made me not scared of Freddy and made me go, oh, he's got some
definitely see that,
some funny moments, and it's like Robert Englund is kind of a comic genius too, with the scene with when he's dancing, like behind the kid who he's cut his ear off and the hearing aid, and so the whole scene is silent. For those of you who haven't seen it, spoiler alert again, but he's dancing behind somebody who's lost their hearing. But in the previous movies, this was all shot and done in a suspenseful, oh, where is Freddy? How is he going to get them? we've been through this so many times that I thought it was actually pretty nice that we went back to the boiler room in this one. And we see it almost from Freddy's perspective. He looks at the camera, right, before he runs and does this jump behind the kid. I'm like, when I watch it in just like a comedy, and I'm like, I can't even call this like Nightmare on Elm Street, because Freddy doesn't even kill anybody with his glove in this movie. Did you know that?
I noticed that, yeah.
I
did notice that too.
And considering that, you know, this was supposed to be like the last big oorah, I kind of understand why it's Robert Englund's talked about it in interviews as well. It's more like a deconstruction, or like a self-destruction at this point, right? Like they're doing the Warner Brothers, you know, Wile E. Coyote, here's the bed of nails for the guy who's skydiving, and you have Freddy one-linering him. It's just the natural conclusion to what I think part 5 was going towards, which you can't sustain the horror at this point because we've already, you know, what else can you do with Freddy at this point?
True. I guess they almost made this movie to piss off Wes Craven, to say, hey, there is still something here.
To goad him into
Nightmare,
it?
Because, but basically, because
Robert
for
Shea,
me,
man.
I just, maybe it's because I didn't watch it. Like, this is only my second rewatch of it, right? Sorry, second watch, like first rewatch and second overall watch.
Okay.
So maybe it's because I've only have disdain for this movie from seeing it the only 2 times, that I couldn't have fun with it. I look at it, especially watching them as we have so close together, I couldn't have fun with it. I just was rolling my eyes at the ear scene, the death scene.
Yeah.
And when he started jumping around, like behind him, I remembered that. Like I had forgotten about that, and then I remembered it. I just put my face. I basically Picard face palmed him, and just was like, "Oh my god, yeah." Because the only things I remembered about this movie obviously were the Nintendo Power Glove, Johnny Depp cameo, Tom Arnold, Roseanne Barr cameo. I remembered a few things, and then like I'd forgotten a lot of things. So I'd forgotten about this. I'd forgotten about all the Robert Englund outside, like all the flashbacks with him not having makeup.
Yeah.
Those scenes, it seemed like they had something there, that it could have been something, but like it just, for me, it's such a broken film, and I don't use that term really a lot in terms of movies. Like it's such a bad movie for me, because it's trying to be serious and scary with the whole flashbacks of his daughter and Robert Englund. And those scenes kind of have this tiny ounce of creepiness to them, where he's outside of the makeup.
Yeah.
And because Robert Englund is such a good actor. But then to have those scenes, and then you have the Nintendo Power Glove and the dancing behind the guy and Freddy on a broomstick, and it's just all these scenes. And
let's not skip over that. The first time we see Freddy Krueger in Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare, is him on a broomstick dressed up with a witch's hat. And they introduce him with the cackle before we see him on camera. He's got like the Witch of the West cackle before he shows up flying on a broomstick as
I'm going to get you, my little pretty.
And your little soul too.
From the primetime bitch to I'm gonna get you, my little pretty. And yeah, fuck this movie.
They must have had a hoot shooting this though. Like, could you imagine being there that day? I
bet they did. I would have had a hoot filming this movie, and I probably would have been like not thinking about the final product. I probably would have been thinking, "Hey, this is great."
Yeah. We don't want to know. So maybe we should go over the story really quick, just so we can kind of just dive into a few other aspects of it. So I'll do like a little brief Spark Notes version for everyone out there who hasn't seen the film. The story takes place 10 years from now, which is really questionable when you put it in the timeline, because as far as I understand in the canon, each film is taking place in its current year. So this one would be 10 years after part 5, which was 89. This would be 1999, 10 years from now. Or maybe from now as in terms of the release, which would be 91, which would be 2001. Either way, it says all the children, teenagers are dead except for one survivor, John Doe, played by Sean Greenblatt. He suffers from a head injury from Freddy throwing him out of a nightmare into reality. His head hits a rock. I'm not sure if this is what brings on his amnesia. Did you catch on to that? Or I know he had the
I didn't
newspaper
know.
in his pocket, but he's going. Yeah, he wakes up from the dream world and makes his way towards the city. So he's leaving Springwood, which is traditionally where all the other Nightmare films were based and took place in. And he makes his way towards the city and away from Springwood and or Elm Street. We meet the new set of characters. Maggie, played by Lisa Zane, Billy Zane's sister. Fun. Did you know that?
No way. I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Maggie's
I can totally see the resemblance now.
Yeah.
That's not an insult. She's very pretty, but
No, yeah. It's Billy. Oh, Billy. She's a therapist who's looking after troubled youth in a shelter alongside Yaphet fucking Kodo, R.I.P.
Oh man,
Jesus
fucking
Christ.
love him.
Even with the garbage he's given
I
in this
said
movie,
in my log. Yes,
he still
I
somehow
said in
makes
my
it work.
log. He does. I fucking love him in everything I see him in, and when he it just shows how much I've forgotten about this movie because it had been so long since I'd seen it. When I saw his name in the opening credits, I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot he was in this."
When you see him, like the scene where he's talking about those dream demons. Oh yeah, so we'll finish the story and then we'll go into this. So yeah. So she's a therapist and she works alongside another therapist who's Yaphet Cody, who they call Doc, and he studies dreams, of course, because it's Nightmare on Elm Street, and he knows about these 3 dream demons, which has that scene of a bunch of exposition that apparently we've never learned Freddy's where his powers come from up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
How he keeps coming back. And so this film, because it's the final nightmare, has to really pound home that there's 3 dream demons that chose Freddy Krueger. And Yaphet Kodo somehow pulls this scene off without it turning into a bag of shit by just putting on a pair of glasses and taking them off. Talking
Absolutely.
about these 3 demons. And then we meet the cannon fodder, Carlos, who's got a hearing aid, played by Ricky Dean Logan. Spencer, played by Breckin Myers. He's the video game kid, so guess how he's going to die. And Tracy, who's played by Leslie Dean. And there's cameos in this movie from Roseanne, Alice Cooper, Oprah Noodle Mantra. Johnny Depp is credited in the Oprah Noodle Mantra. If you want to look in I'm assuming Rachel Talalay just probably brought him over from Crybaby, I would imagine, right? Because it's like, hey, we're working on a project. I'm going back to do Freddy's Dead. Would you be in a cameo? And Johnny Depp's probably just like, yeah, I'll do it. I'm sure something like that, right? Because he was in the first movie. That kind of gave him his kickstart in his career, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Put him in a lot of screens. Yes, that's kind of after this. It's just kind of John Doe character played by Sean Greenblatt has amnesia, and then they take these kids out of town. And it's all plays out like the town's really bizarre and they're under a psychosis now. It says that in the beginning, and it's very much like Twin Peaks, which is very obvious, was because Rachel Talalay even talks about her inspiration from Twin Peaks. And everybody's idea was, okay, it's like Twin Peaks with the weird characters, right? Like you have the eccentric teacher in the school, 1973, or Freddy sailed across the sea.
Yeah.
But it's kind of creepy. But like honestly, when I was a kid, those scenes were hilarious to me, and I love those. 1474, Freddy came back to look for more. It's like it's a rhyme, so it's like kind of fucking. To a kid, it's humorous, right, or at least entertaining, and the weird, lady at the orphanage who is talking to all the invisible children. Very much, I can see where Twin Peak-esque, but it's not Lynch. It never makes you feel like you're in the dream, though. It's just like people acting weird. You know what I mean? Without getting too much into the weeds of all that, what that is. But, this movie, it's fucking bizarre after that because it leads you to believe the John Doe character is the main character, and then after they go to the orphanage, we realize after a couple of kids die, and we can talk about that in a minute, but he dies too, and you never really figure out who he was. His character never has a resolution. It's absolutely bizarre. It's like they just kind of gave up. it's one of the things in this movie where I'm like, did they just forget this in the story or the script, or like what happened? Because the story, Rachel Talalay got a credit, but the screenplay was by Michael DeLuca, and so she I think she was like co-screenwriter or something, but she has a story credit. So I was like, I seriously wonder what the point of the John Doe character was, other than just simply a red herring pulling a Hitchcock on us, right? Like a Janet Leigh type. Because he's the whole time you're at this character, he's like, why hasn't Freddy killed me yet? But it's pretty obvious, judging after you. I don't know. I've seen this movie enough times now to kind of just pay more attention to plot points, and to me, it was quite obvious when he says, when Freddy says to him, "Now be a good little dog and go fetch." He's got a plan, right?
And yeah, it sets it up that he's going to be a huge part of the movie, and then it's just like, nope.
I just knew you would go and find my daughter, who's a therapist. Like, we have to suspend our disbelief. But I would have been interested to see, because it is cool, like you said too. With before we jump into like any of the history or how the movie did and Freddy and the kills and all that good stuff. This movie is kind of weird in that sense too, because it deals with some heavy stuff, like Maggie actually being Fred Krueger's daughter, which, we never knew about this in the history before, so it does add something new. And I feel like that idea is kind of interesting near the end, where he wants her to put the glove on and all this stuff, but I feel like the execution of it's very bland and it's blasé, and it feels very uninspired, because ultimately how they kill Freddy in this movie is the way they killed him in many other movies, and I would argue that he's been defeated better in at least the first, third, and fourth movie. Know, like all those have a better finale for Freddy. Biting it, he bought it.
This one just seems dragged out and lame.
It's played out at this point. Like, we've already taken him out of the. Like, they do that in the original. If I take out something from my dream, it applies to the rules of the real world. That's essentially the crux of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, right? He can hurt you in there, but what you take out is fair game. And they take Freddy out and they womp him again. And so the endings of this movie is like flatter than a plate full of piss. And I don't know. Like, the Maggie character is all right, but I don't feel like it ever really goes far enough for it to be justified. Although I think she does a fine job in that role. But the Tracy character too. The Tracy character is pretty interesting. Like, her character with their father, that was a dark ass scene too. But then it plays out so goofy, right? Because you have like the creepy, sexually abusive father towards this girl, and she beats the shit out of him, and it's kind of cool. But even like his face is like Play-Doh after they smash his face, so they couldn't even play that serious, right? Like, she beats in her dream, she beats her abusive father with a fucking, what is it, like a coffee pot, a corded electric coffee pot. Just bashes his head in. And in real life, you know, it would look awful and gross and grotesque. And, this is Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's Final Nightmare. So it's going to be Play-Doh and, silly putty type looking thing, which, you know what? This has to be the most family friendly Nightmare on Elm Street movie, because, like, there's no nudity. There's barely any, like, overt violence, like maybe the ear chopping scene with Carlos.
I would say the ear is the worst thing, but then it becomes like what could have been pretty horrific. It just turns into a goofy cartoon. So yeah, you're right. Like, I don't think this would have scared me as a kid.
No. The mother,
I don't think at all.
I think when the mother, I think it's supposed to be Carlos's mother with the Q-tip. That scene, oh shit, that gives me some sensory like that's not. It's creepy, and it's also like, ooh, I don't want that happening to me, right? But it's not. It never gets into torture.
That's the only thing in this movie that could be considered horrific. But no, it's just I think by the Nintendo, like, I can't imagine watching I can imagine watching the Nintendo Power Glove kill when I was a kid and just laughing, just being like,
the Power Glove.
Even as soon or as recent as Part 5, I had to turn off the channel because the eating scene scared me when I was a kid. So yeah. But if I saw the like Nintendo Power Glove kill when I was a kid, I would have changed the channel. I would have been like, "Oh, this seems goofy and dumb." And
It's almost kind of
yeah,
humorous in
maybe
some
I would have.
stupid way.
Maybe if I had seen this as a kid, I would have better feelings for it now because just watching it as an adult,
I
I hate
know.
it.
Yeah. It doesn't give us what we want. Feel like that's why it's like a guilty pleasure for me because,
See, and
the movie's
I've seen
competent.
other people's takes on that. I've seen other people's takes on that, and it is competent. I feel like I did give it a
You had
1
Brian
star.
May doing the music. You know who Brian May is, don't you? He's the guitarist.
Yeah, Queen took a
I
break from their tour.
I had to take a
I
look.
love that I love that I genuinely thought when I saw that it was Brian May of Queen.
I did too, but I'm pretty sure Brian May from Queen did a soundtrack or two in his day, or some shit like that, right? Like Queen
Did
did.
he? I know, what's, Genesis, one of the members of Genesis, not Phil Collins. Well, Phil Collins has done scores, I think, too. I know he did the music
Tarzan.
for, like,
Yeah.
Tarzan, obviously, and, I think he did another Disney movie, Brother Bear, which I haven't seen, but I'm getting off topic here, but, Brian May, I think, or sorry, not Brian May, I think a member of, Genesis, funny enough, did the music for Spyro the Dragon, the
That
video game,
you know what that
and I think
checks
he
out.
also did the music for a few movies, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Brian May, not different Brian May, different
yeah.
Brian May.
He did some soundtracks though. I had to double check that too. Um, let me look at what I have to say about this movie that's positive. Um, the marketing for this movie is really good. I think that's why. Let's talk about the numbers. Yeah, let's get to the numbers. $11 million budget for this movie, so I'm going to put it in perspective to the last few movies. All right, so we'll go Final Nightmare budget 11 million, gross is 34. Pretty good. Part 5,
Okay.
8 million.
Still making money.
Yeah. Part 5, $8 million budget, made 22.
Wow.
And so we'll watch. This is the number that really shows you how buggered they were if they didn't market this movie how they did. Part 4, $6.5 million budget, 49 mil. There's
Holy
like
yeah.
20 there's 27 million difference
Jesus.
between 4 and 5, and they only increased the budget 1.5 approximately, right? You have to take this all with a grain of salt. Obviously, we're just going with the numbers we got here, folks. But Final Nightmare having an 11 million budget going back up to 34 is not a huge punch up back to glory, but it is at least a step in the right direction. And I think that's because they marketed it with
as the final
film. And then, going back to Robert Shea, he's been the one who's been behind this, right? Being the producer and the guy who's focused about the money and getting these movies made a lot. Responsible for the whole series, really. Him and Wes, I'd say, are like the two, right? Without Robert, I don't think it would have got made. And then without Wes, obviously, writing and directing, thank God he didn't just throw the script away. We never even would be sitting here talking about these. But long story boring, Robert Shea said it was time to let Freddy go for a while. They were running out of good ideas. And he kind of alludes to, it just kind of ran its course. I mean, also, the last one's called The Dream Child. And, we're not going to go bashing on other stuff, but this one was marketed as, okay, we don't have that many good ideas. Let's send it off with a bang. Put part of the movie in 3D, which is, I don't think applied to either of our viewings. I didn't put on my old red and blue 3D glasses at all. So,
I think I have a pair in my Coraline DVD, but I did not put them. I did not put them on for this. No, I don't think it's even offered.
No, I remember on the old.
We have the same copy of this
on the old DVD box set. They had to watch the ending in 3D version, which is regrettable because I think I either traded it in or sold it because I'm like, I'm upgrading to the Blu-ray. What a mistake, because it didn't have all the goodies, which is such a letdown when you get a new edition of a movie, right? And you don't have all the bells and whistles from the old ones.
Yeah. You're supposed to be upgrading and you end up downgrading.
Yeah, I don't have these special features or whatever. So LA Mayor Tom Bradley declared September 13th Freddy Krueger Day. And there was a funeral with the cast, crew, and members of these movies, and it was kind of humorous, like having people like the director and actors show up. I saw Grady from part 2. He was there, and there's behind the scenes footage like shot on shitty handheld camera of the people who attended, and it's just the people who worked on this movie, right? And it's like, oh, Freddy's really dead this time, and there's Grady crying, like fake crying, and it's a publicity stunt, but it's pretty smart, right? In that sense of like,
that is really funny.
And of course, at the time, there was people who were, I'm not sure which group it was. I didn't really dive into it too much because I don't really give that much thought to the type of thought policing that went on. But a lot of people talked about it at that time that there was like protests against them having National Freddy Krueger Day and this type of thing. And it's like, we're celebrating, and it's like, child murder, and it's like, but no, it's not, because the movie brought a lot of money and employed a lot of people for many years, and that's Robert Englund, I think, said it best once in an interview. It's like, you need to be able to separate, I don't know, I'm just paraphrasing, but it was something to the effect of, you need to be able to separate entertainment from like real violence in the world, because we're not I don't think anybody's going, yeah, child murder, woohoo, that day. No, it's a character, and it's a series of films that have made money for people and brought a lot of especially because I think every single one was filmed, like, brought a lot of business to New Line Cinema, right? New Line Cinema's the house is called the house that Freddy built, so a lot of people were employed, and a lot of people fucking probably have a house now because of these movies, right? Like, God gave a lot of people their career starts. We've talked about Rennie Harlan, Patricia Arquette, Johnny Depp. Oh, it's
Tom Arnold.
Look what you did. you know they bring him Ethel. What the fuck was that? Him and Tom Arnold and Roseanne in this movie.
God. Oh my God.
That was so
You want to class up your movie. Bring in Tom Arnold and Roseanne Barr.
Apparently, Roseanne was super pissed too. Rachel Talalay told this story, and the director of this movie says that Roseanne thought she was just coming in for a half day. When they realized she was there for the full day, she's like, "Oh, she was pissed." I was like, "That's so funny."
All right, where's craft services?
Yeah, where's the craft service? Because like, I guess, I don't know. You think she would know better, considering like she had one of the biggest TV shows at that point, right?
At the time,
yeah. It'd be like, "Hey, it's a movie. Can you come in? We just need you for a cameo." I don't think anybody in the right mind would be like, "Oh yeah, I'll just be there for an hour or two." Freaking makeup takes an hour or two. Can't, everything takes time on a set.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
those,
just an hour or two. Like,
those
it's not going to be a
expectations.
freaking walk-on role where like a Hitchcock cameo, like going back to Hitchcock, where it's just walking by and looking at the camera. For God's sakes, yeah.
Yeah. They're there. They have to get different camera angles. They have to relight stuff. All that shit. But yeah, that was, again, they kind of played into the Twin Peaks vibe. So maybe we should talk about Freddy in this movie. Obviously, a lot different than the previous ones.
Yeah, what a turn from 1 to 6.
Yeah, it's not even. It's almost, and I think that's one of the most interesting things about this series is how much Freddy changes as well. He's almost unrecognizable apart from the hat and the burnt. he's such an icon at this point in pop culture. It's hard to like not just see the hat and the glove, or like just the posture, even, right? Like the silhouette of Robert Englund as Freddy. It's just, you can tell. But the character is nothing alike. And in this movie, I feel like he does as good of a job as he can with what he's given. I think he's fucking hilarious as Freddy, but it's no longer scary. Like in scenes where Freddy should already have killed somebody or should be killing somebody, he's just talking to them. He's like monologuing like a villain from a Marvel film, where he's going to tell them his whole plan and how you're so stupid and they buried me this one time. And then they, you know what I mean? He's cutting his fingers off. At this point, it's a walk down memory lane with, it's just, we're not doing some new stuff here. He's cutting off his own fingers. Like at this point, it seems like there, and maybe that's just a callback to the original in this movie, but even his makeup, I find at some points in some scenes, his upper lip, I don't know if it was a full mask in this movie or it was mostly a mask, but I feel like his makeup's also really poor and latex looking a lot in this movie.
I think you said too in previous movie, like he had been getting tired of all the, and I thought about that when I was watching it. What you said about Robert Englund getting tired of all the long makeup
Oh yeah.
times. Yeah, so like I attributed all the scenes with him out of makeup as Freddy Krueger in the past, like the flashbacks. I figured that was probably part of that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so nice too, because at this point, it's going to be a big movie, and they at least extend the olive branch to Robert Englund and be like, hey, here's a scene where you don't have to have all the prosthetic and makeup on,
Right,
that
exactly.
you can
Probably
actually
just
see
like
the man
so
behind it.
pumped.
That's such a nice
Yeah,
touch that I'm sure that's got to be like, I don't know if it's in the contract or what, but you mean, how often do we see it, right? Like, I think it's almost in every movie. I think the only one
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't see him in, which, I mean, you kind of pointed it out in part 3, there's no Robert Englund as anybody else, but you said he could have played Craig Wasson, Neil Gordon's character, and I
Yep,
thought he could have, because I mean, you have him in part 2. He's the bus driver at the beginning. You have him
yep.
in part 4
At
as the
the
nurse. A little callback to
yep.
the Dream Warriors, where he has the needles, right? In part 5, he obviously he's one of the 100 maniacs, and also the guy who jump scares you in Alice's bedroom in the first scene in the movie. So
Right, right.
they've
Yep.
always given him some time to shine outside of it, which I thought is a really nice, especially in this movie too, because like what you were saying, those plot lines actually seemed kind of interesting. But I wish they went a
There
little
could have been
further.
something there.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I
there
wish
could
they
have
would
been
have.
something there, but
They focused too much on the goofy kills in this one, which I guess is
mhm.
maybe a reason why a lot of these people are going to see them at this point. And I guess that's kind of, I mean, as a child, that's, I remember great graphics and the power glove scene, and
Oh
also
god.
and the bed of nails, Wile E. Coyote bed of nails, and do you think I'm your daddy? Mm-mm. Like, it's so stupid, but then he's just like, he's like, like some of the lines, like even the noises he makes when the scene with Carlos with the hearing aid, and he brings out the giant
Oh,
board.
it just goes total full on blown cartoon.
Yeah, he's making the
Like
noises.
it's
Ooh, he's like, and
yeah.
you know what's gonna happen when he pulls out the chalkboard, right? But it's just, I thought the okay,
But I think that's what's so funny is that like you were saying, like a lot of people at the time were probably going to see these movies for the kills and everything, but I think it was just going back to part 3, the Dream Warriors, it was just, yeah, you were going to be like, you were going to have be fun. It's fun to be scared, and you were going to see these like kind of grotesque and almost fun kills, like going back to 3. But then by this point, it was like they really. I can just picture a teenager sitting in the theater and just being, "What the fuck is this?"
yeah, yeah,
Like I don't know how many. I assume because I know a lot of people do not like this film. Like it's hated in the community. But that being said, recently I've seen a lot of people that have been giving it love, like yourself, like just saying that they enjoy it and they get a kick out of it.
oh yeah.
I've
I'm
seen
not
a lot
saying
more. I've seen
I
a lot
love it.
more of those. No, no, of course not. But like I do see more positive people saying more positive things about it recently in the last few years, which I still don't understand, but I do understand if that makes any sense. Like I'm not one of them. I don't agree, but I do kind of get it.
To me,
I just picture myself if I was a teenager in 91 um and not 3 years old, but if I was a teenager in 91 sitting in the theater, I just picture myself being, if especially if I was a longtime fan of the series, which I would have been, I just picture myself just sitting in the theater and being like, what the fuck is this?
yeah, it is.
A lot like if I had seen it in theaters, the remake, I probably would have said. I
Oh,
probably did say when I was watching it with my brother, I probably would have said, what the fuck is this? But
right, just, and that would be right and just.
yeah.
Freddy, let's finish up with Freddy in this movie. The makeup, John Carl Buechler was in charge of, again, RIP. I don't think it looks very good in this movie, but I don't know if who was applying it and what the process was as much as the other ones. But I think in a few scenes, John Carl Buechler said he applied it himself, which I thought was funny because watching the movie, there's some scenes where the makeup does look not as latexy and not as
right,
where you're not just saying, oh, like the scene when him and Maggie are having dialogue. That scene, the makeup just pisses me off when I watch it because the way the lighting's hitting it and all this stuff, I could just see England's upper lip, and I can kind of see where the mask meets the actor, and it just doesn't look like it. It almost changes profile of his face, right? Slightly, where to me it's just like,
yeah, it does.
It's no Michael Myers mask from part 4 or 5, right? But it's not that egregious, but it is noticeable, and it bothers me. But yeah, he is funny in this movie. I think he does as well with what he's given as he can. Him as Robert Englund as Fred Krueger pre-burn was also really good. Wish that would have went further. Maybe we should talk about the kills. Obviously, we have the hearing aid one with Carlos, which was, we've kind of already talked about it. It does. I like the scene in the sense of it does a pretty good job of building tension. Not in the sense of, oh my god, I hope he makes it out like I did in Dream Warriors, but in a sense of,
right,
how's he gonna die? And Freddy's like just he's being a ham sandwich in this, a burnt ham sandwich, and he's the pins and the needles, like the beginning of that. I thought that and the water, little water drip is a genius way to start it. But then the way the head just blows up and it's bloodless, it's so weird.
Been great.
Yeah,
that scene could have been great, but it just
even when his head blows up, there's no blood, there's nothing. He's just and then
ridiculous.
Fred has to get the line in after that too. Nice hearing from you, Carlos. It's like, he just he should have just thrown a bitch at the end of it too. At that point, if they would have kept it in, I would have. What's it going to change? So Freddy is Freddy in this movie. The kills, you have the Spencer character with the comic, not the comic. They're blending together because in the last one, a guy goes into a comic, and now this one, the guy goes into a video game. But at least he gets to hear.
Oh my god! And
Iron
that
Butterfly
is just even more ridiculous. The Iron Butterfly is cool, but in the Garden of Eden by Iron Butterfly.
Simpsons. Oh man.
Yeah, sorry, that was for all the old Simpsons fans out there listening.
And well, Groundskeeper Willie would have something to say to you because he plays Freddy in one of them, right? Groundskeeper.
Oh,
one of those trios.
That's classic. That is a classic episode.
Turns into a tractor. Oh my god!
March Weather.
It's his rake too. It's not his glove, if I remember correctly.
Yes. That's a classic episode. That really does the series justice. They use I think they do a similar music and oh man, I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna rewatch that episode this October because that is a brilliant episode.
Yeah, agreed. What the fuck was I saying?
Dreams. Power Glove. Yes.
Power
Breckenmeyer.
Glove, yeah. Breckenmeyer. He goes into the video game. He's been in Rat Race. He dies in a video game. And he falls down the rabbit hole.
It's so stupid how he's bouncing off the walls, and like it cuts to the video game, and it's just like, what again?
Another one of the rules where they just take and use whenever they need to, right? Like, what? Remember, like his character's literally jumping like he's in a video game and sliding around, whereas so why do some people who go into the dream world actually move around like that in real life? When their bodies are moving like that in their dreams. And another Nightmare on Elm Street movie is they just wake up in their bed. And I'm dead in my bed. Like Kincaid just grabs his chest in Dream Master. He's like, oh. He just like wakes up and then he's like, oh yeah, I'm dead. And he falls down dead. This movie, it's like John Doe gets sucked out of a parachute and he goes through the roof of a van. Qu'est-ce que la fuck, my guy? You know what I mean? It's
just
wacky.
Pick and choose.
Yeah. But yeah, you have great
Nothing. Well,
graphics,
one of
Power
the best.
Glove.
Oprah noodle mantra, getting collapsing into his bed.
Yes, Oprah Noodle
From the
Mantra.
OG, from the OG,
He
Oprah noodle mantra.
he leads this scene too, right? He leads into the Iron Butterfly because
Yes, he
Spencer
does. Yeah,
Spencer
that's
gets
right.
really stoned, man. Because apparently in this movie, if you smoke weed, you also like hallucinate shit and you go into other dimensions. I wish it was like that, bro. Sign me up. Putting on some Iron Butterfly, I'd fucking do it. But yeah, Oprah Noodle Mantra, aka Johnny Depp, shows up and gets memed on by Freddy in a dream sequence about those old PSA ads about this is your brain on drugs. So stupid, but I guess it's kind of funny in the context. And then Freddy shows up and
Yeah.
says, "Looks like a frying pan and some eggs to me." It's like, holy shit, yeah, dong. It's not violent. It's like eating Raoul. Whenever he kills somebody in that movie, it's just like a frying pan over the dong. They're dead.
I have to watch that movie. Off topic, but yeah, I do have to watch that movie.
I find it funny too. This is just a side note because the only other death in the movie is John Doe, which other than the parachute scene, other than like the reviving of the whole Wizard of Oz, his house is flying through the air, he's falling again thing from the beginning of the movie. This character just dies, and nothing's ever really explained who John Doe is. He's just introduced as John Doe, and he dies as John Doe, but he's not Freddy's kid. The whole death scene is kind of, I don't know. It feels rather anticlimactic. Yeah, you don't get any answers, and also he's just dead with the Wile E. Coyote. Freddy cuts his cord, and Freddy also shows up on the ground and sets a bed of spikes for him to fall into, and has enough time to have a big deep breath in. So he's a little tired manipulating these dreams like this with these kids in them, but he's gonna start all over again on a new Elm Street after he brought him to his own daughter, which to me is like, why did he need her to get in here? Also, they added a new rule in this movie. While we're still talking about Freddy, sorry, it just came to me.
No, yeah.
He's also got a new power that after this happens and they go back into Springwood, Freddy's entered his daughter's mind and has manipulated reality for everybody except Yaphet motherfucking Kodo. Because nobody remembers the other characters, right? They said, "Oh, I don't know who John Doe was. I don't know Spencer. I don't know Carlos." Right? These are the only characters who die in the whole movie, except for Freddy. And so where Freddy goes now, he's got a power so people don't remember about these things, right? I don't know.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know if I'm picking up on that or if that's just him distorting her reality, but then why is everybody else aware of that reality too, right? Because they do drive through when they do come back to like the halfway house or whatever, they'd call that. Freddy's in her mind and you see them drive through that like on the border line, right? With the brilliant line, now it's traveling time before Freddy transports into her mind. Right on the nose there. And then everything they drive through like this plate of invisible glass and they go back into this obviously an altered reality, right? But Yaphet Kodo, the doc, is onto it. It's just like it's just throwing everything at the wall at this point. There's no rhyme or reason. It's like
no, it's literally just
Does he erase people's memories as well?
This is the last one, so let's just do whatever.
Yeah, because it makes sense if he's just altering her reality because he's in her mind, but then why did the other characters? Unless I'm misremembering something. If I'm wrong, somebody can tell me in the comments. Get me. Flame them. Flame me. But, yeah, I don't know. The kills are all right. I think the best one in terms of, like, the one I remember the most of this movie is 100% the boiler room scene with Carlos, because the Q-tips is uncomfortable, and then the whole Freddy clowning him before he even, it's just a cat playing with a mouse at this point, and it's showing it from Freddy's perspective. Right. I thought, if this is what the movie's going to be like, all right, I'll play this, but it's not scary at all. It's not scary at all. But we do have scenes that call back to the other one too, like the kids, like we have him cutting off his fingers, and we have the kids driving around in circles when they're also apparently none of them are asleep. Do you see what I mean? That like this movie has these reoccurring things where, okay, it's like Twin Peaks, but you can't be You're not David Lynch. I'm sorry. If you want to be, as much as, I mean, it was kind of a callback to part 4, right? When they realize Alice and Dan are going, and they're going into to go save her from the cockroach scene, right, Debbie? And then
Yes.
they go in that circle, that cycle of, and then so you, okay, we realize we're in a dream. But this one is multiple different kids driving, and we have that same, no matter which way these kids turn, they keep sticking in this town. Freddy doesn't want them to leave, but he's manipulating the
Nope.
house. He's even manipulating the street in this situation where the house is not that house, and then the house shows up. You know what I mean? Where they walk in and it has a huge transformation. It's cool in that sense, but I wish it just made a fucking lick of sense.
Yeah, anything coherent.
Yeah, and here's one thing. It's pet peeve for me. Sorry, I'm getting a little dour. I'll pick it up after this. I'll have a sip of coffee. Or my energy drink at this point. John Doe, when he, did you notice on his house when he's falling in his dream, it says 427 Elm Street. So when he lands, it goes to 1427. And
Yeah,
Nancy's house, or I guess in this movie they're calling it Freddy's house. It might be interchangeable at this point, right? It's just where he brings people in his dreams to torment them. But to the classic Freddy house, right? With the kids skip roping and shit. But John Doe's house is 1427. So we never get any answers as to like what his backstory was with Freddy, or Freddy was just.
it just seemed like it was an afterthought from like the previous movies or something. His character, sorry, was an afterthought from the previous movies, and like, yeah.
What happened to everybody else, man? Alice had a kid.
Mm-hmm.
They're all dead now.
Right. No, 10 years later, they're all dead.
10 years later, all of them are gone or dead or run away. What an ending. They truly did live up to the marketing of this movie. They saved the best for last. That was actually
my God.
Which is like the most hilarious shit when you think about it. Looking back, what we know now. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other fun things to say about this movie. Did you know before this movie was written by Rachel Talalay and Michael DeLuca? I think he gets the screenwriting credit. She just kind of had the story ideas or the concepts and shit. Peter Jackson was working on a script for this movie. You know?
Wow, I didn't know that. That doesn't surprise me because I know his start was horror with
I know he did a bunch of them, right? He did Dead Alive.
Dead Alive. Yeah.
Oh, kick ass for the Lord.
That movie is bonkers. Oh my God. Speaking of bonkers movie, that movie, it works though. That movie is just the last 30 minutes of that movie is just pure bonkers awesomeness.
Yes, agreed. He had a draft for this movie.
But see, and it's so funny because you would have never thought that because he did The Frighteners before The Lord of the Rings, and he did Bad Taste, which I've seen, which I wasn't big on, but I know it's like got a cult following. I actually have his movie on my watch pile. It's called Meet the Feebles. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I could go out, run out and grab it, but it's his all puppet movie.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Which he also did before. Yeah, so like that, I didn't know that he had done a draft for this movie, but I think that would have been interesting and that would have been cool.
Yeah, he had a co-writer, and apparently he was working at New Line. Like they brought him in to write a script, and it was called The Dream Lover.
The Dream Lover.
Yeah, I believe it was called The Dream Lover, and he had a co-writer with him. I don't remember the fellow's name, but essentially the idea, and I don't know how it all play out, but the concept for this movie was that it's years from now, maybe not 10 years from now. Maybe that's what they took from Peter Jackson. They said, hey, it's a while from now. 10 years from now, can we take that and run? Take it and run? All the kids are dead? Fresh start, right? Oh, we just need new blood. That's all we need to get in here. That's also, it's like a sequel title for one of the Friday the 13th, The New Blood. That's all we need now. More blood.
The Carrie one?
Yeah, I actually like that one. John Carl Buechler directed that one too. Pretty sick. Also great Jason special effects in that one. Anyway.
That is for another day.
Yeah, Peter Jackson. This movie was... it sounds pretty cool. So essentially, it's years from now, and Freddy Krueger is no longer as strong as he once was, and people put themselves to sleep with sleeping pills as like a joke and like as a dare. And they go into his world and they beat the shit out of him, like Clockwork Orange style.
No way.
And it's like what kids do to get to like have fun. But somewhere along the way, he was lucky enough to get, like, you know, it probably would have been the first 20 minutes or so after you set up. We've already went and kicked his ass a few times. Freddy is able to kill one of them, but he's like decrepit, and like it's pretty much what they did to our boy in Halloween Ends there, but we're not getting into that either. But like inexplicably, time has gone on and Freddy is a lot weaker now. Perhaps that's because people have forgotten about him. They have introduced that into the lore, right? Like when people are afraid of Freddy, that gives him power. It's not explained.
Right, when they ignore him.
Yeah, it's not explained as to how far or if that was going to play into this. But anyway, he was old, decrepit. People go in and beat the crap out of him, and then he gets lucky and gets one kill, and that gives him enough juice, enough energy. You know, it gives him a little power up, like in a video game, to get back and get going. And there's also a cop who's in a coma, and so he's permanently stuck in the nightmare world. And that's all I know about that draft. But damn it sounds fucking cool.
That sounds already better than what this piece of shit was.
Yeah, this one is like, I get with the Twin Peaks, like, and I just started watching Twin Peaks, by the way, so I can't even make an accurate, is it or isn't it? I mean, I know it's some of the kooky characters in this movie are definitely like Twin Peaks, right? The over exaggeration and the way they act and stuff. But anything further than that, I'm just not far enough in the series to make accurate comparisons. But in terms of like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, this definitely doesn't. It doesn't ever go to that level that I hope it will. In terms of like, it's not a. This is like the juicy cheeseburger of the series, right? Of the canon, if you will, because what comes next is going to go outside of this world, right? And I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason. This movie's part of the reason. And kind of funny enough, when you said that about Wes Craven, they did this to bring Wes Craven back. Wes Craven, I was watching some of the behind the scenes. I can't remember where it was for. When I was doing research for this recording, it was on one of the Blu-rays behind the scenes features or one of the documentaries I own. And Wes Craven said he was in New York or something and saw the poster for Freddy's Death, The Final Nightmare. And, you know, he's kind of been touch and go with the series here and there, right? He came with part 3, and they got a story credit. And that's just kind of funny to me. He's like, oh yeah, I guess they milked it for all its for all it's worth. And then the man, the myth comes back for the new nightmare.
New Nightmare, which I hope, yeah, I can't, I hope, I don't know why I said I hope, I can't wait to rewatch that, and yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much really more to be said. I mean, I'd like to give this movie more like a cultural context or like something, or like what is it saying or doing, but it's just like it's pretty much just it's self-referential. It's taking the piss out of itself. It's just a wacky time.
I don't mind if movie films do that, but it just, I don't know. This has always bugged me.
It's fair.
I think I said in my last review that I won't be watching this one again. I could watch maybe not even 5, but I could watch 1 to 4 again, even though I wasn't big on 4 this rewatch.
Yeah.
I could still watch 1 to 4 again, no problem, and enjoy them. Sorry, but yeah, 5 and 6, I don't know if I would ever, unless the only way I could see myself rewatching this one, part 6, is if I went to a retro screening of it on the big screen with a crowd, because I feel like that might make it more fun.
Yeah, I think so. Just don't bring any of the electric lettuce with you, and Bring your Iron Butterfly on cassette with you. You might get into trouble once Oprah, or your calling card, your warning sign is when Oprah Noodle Mantra shows up on screen. You got to get out of there. See, that's the thing. I feel the same. I feel the same about this. It's not one of those ones that I go back to often, but the scenes where Freddy's in them give me a kick. And that's
again, I can see that. It's not, that isn't my, like, I don't get that from it, but I can see that viewpoint, and I know other people have that viewpoint about this movie too, that they do enjoy it in that sense. But yeah, for me, I just ugh.
It doesn't sum up. If somebody was to say, "Hey, can you show me a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, or can you show me a Freddy Krueger film?" I wouldn't show them this one. This is
no.
It's not one we go to. I'd still, you know what? It's not like it's a review for me, but I still think I'd put this above 5 because I consider it more fun. This is like this is the juicy cheeseburger of the franchise.
You know what? I hate this more than 5 for different reasons, but I do see that viewpoint, because I said in our last recording of 5 that, like, yeah, I found it boring. It took me 2 times to watch it. This one, you're right. I got through it in one sitting. It is super short. They all are, like, mostly super short. I don't think any of the
hour and a half. I think New Nightmare actually runs a bit longer. I think New Nightmare is a bit longer.
That makes sense because of all the intro stuff with oh man, I can't wait to rewatch that.
We're gonna be digging into that one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be good to dig into. Yeah, to me, it's like when I'm getting down to my least favorite of the series, this is definitely in the running. I think just off the top of my cranium right now, just thinking about it and spitballing, I think I prefer this over 5, and I'll give you my explanation real quick. I think I like it better because part 5 is trying to have a message, and but it's beating me over the head with it about the kid and like the subtext, right? Where this movie doesn't have a subtext, it's just a popcorn.
Bonkers.
It's a popcorn fart, it doesn't really equate to anything. It's just it's zaniness on screen for an hour and a half. And at this point, we needed Wes to come back to make Freddy great again, make him scary again. Because, this version of Robert Englund that even gets referenced in New Nightmare.
Forgive me if you can hear the sirens in the background. It's the sounds of London.
Oh, man. How's it going there in London, eh? Ambulances are pulling up, coming to get you.
Fire trucks, yeah. But what you were saying, yes. Like the New Nightmare, I should, you know what? No, I'm going to save that. What I was about to just say, I'm going to save it for our New Nightmare discussion. So.
All right, then.
I was about to say something, but it's more of a New Nightmare discussion for New Nightmare. So.
We'll save that then, because
I'll bring up when I mention it in the discussion. I'll bring up what I was going to say during this discussion.
Okay.
I'll say, hey, remember? Yeah.
Noted. Anything else you have to say about Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare?
I'm so, like, I was excited, obviously, just to discuss it with you, as I always am, excited just for our talks. But I'm ready to put this behind us.
Yes.
And I'm ready to dabble into the New Nightmare rewatch.
Yes, we're going to be it'll be our second film we're doing in the 90s. Watch out, we're not going to be, baby's first 90s movie anymore. We'll be moving onwards and upwards. And then we'll see where we go from there. I'm thinking, I don't know, there's a few more Freddy-based movies.
Freddy versus Jason, and then
Freddy versus Jason could be
good. And then you know what?
Yeah.
And then you know what?
Yes, unfortunately.
Michael
Bay produced. We got to count the lens flares. We got to see. No, that's J.J. Abrams, right? I mean,
that is J.J.
Michael Bay is an aesthetic guy too. I feel like he shoots a lot on anamorphics, but we're not going to get into that right here and now. If anybody is still listening at this point in the broadcast, thank you for your time. Hit the like or subscribe button. Show us that you're out there and we're not just talking to ourselves and the tortoise in the room over here with me at this point. Yeah, I had a good chat. And
it was good.
We'll move on to New Nightmare, and I think we'll go in guns a-blazing.
Fuck yeah.
All right. Well, this has been another titillating episode of Film Club. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great night. Don't let the bed bugs bite. No, that's not it. What would Freddy say? Oh, wait. There's one more thought. I almost forgot it. And this is pertinent, salient point to shutting this podcast off, to stopping recording right now. Is that the catchphrase that the skipping children sing? 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix. And in the terms of Final Nightmare, we're just going to skip the next part. 9, 10, never sleep again. Or Freddy's back again. Once again.
Freddy's back again. Once again.
But it's not Freddy, it's Demon Freddy. Stay tuned, folks. New Nightmare coming soon. Peace out.
Bye.